Hello people, we are going to see how to create this adjust brightness screen in Unreal Engine like you see in many AAA games on first startup and in their options menu. The prerequisites for the same are basic knowledge of Unreal, a C++ project and a blank code plugin which is totally optional. Section 1, Material Creation. I have prepared this simple logo to be used in the adjust brightness UI. It is just a simple white font on a transparent background and you can create it using any software, be it Photoshop, photop.com or paint.net, GIMP, and that will work completely fine. We will import it in the project with the texture group settings to be UI and the compression to be user interface. This will allow us only to have one map level of this texture, which is considered a good practice for user interface textures. Now we will create a new material of user interface material domain. Typically the background of this type of textures is kept as black, but we will keep it as a variable in case we want to change it later. And we will also sample the logo we created and convert it into a parameter so that we can easily change the logo. Post this, we will add the background color and the multiplied alpha value with an alpha multiplier of the texture and plug it into the final color. This will provide us with a white text on a black background and the option to change the transparency of the text. When the material is created, we will create 3 material instances, namely not visible, barely visible, clearly visible. For the time being, we'll put some arbitrary values, but we will calibrate this later on. Section 2, Gamma Calibration Screen UMG Creation. I will fast forward in this section as this is just UI creation. If you want, you guys can slow down this section and follow the steps. But in general, you would need these 3 widgets. Image, total 3 in count to display the material instances, a slider to change the value, a button to reset to the default value. Section 3. Gamma calibration screen, adding functionality to UMG. We set up some variables and make them instance editable. The variables are basically default gamma. The default value is generally 2.2, a gamma value range, and upon hit and trial I found out 1.2 to 3.2 suits well, and a slider step value. 0.1 seems good because it allows us to change from 2.2, 2.4 and so on. We will update the step size of the slider in the pre-construct, and then we will bind the slider's on value changed and buttons on clicked to our custom functionality, which we will code later on. We'll also be using the tooltips on the slider and the button to show the user what is the current value and what will be the value upon reset. For this, we bind the tooltip text of the slider to the present value in the text format using the current value from the slider. You will see remapping here, and this will be quite frequently used because the slider is 0 to 1 range while we use a custom range for the gamma values. This keeps the UI neat and clean with the range being 0 to 1 and allows us extensibility with custom range. The way to change gamma in Unreal Engine is to use the gamma console command followed by the gamma value, which ranges from 0 to 1. Hence we execute the gamma command using the value from the slider. We append it to form a string and then we pass it onto the execute console command blueprint node. The slider default in the UI is set to be 0.5 and we will create the reset default function to always map this 0.5 to the default gamma value you are using, that is 2.2. Section 4. Test UMG setup. So this section I will basically create a holder UMG to showcase how to use the above created widget and how to put the above created widget in your UI. Mostly you will put this in some existing UI and show it using that. If something like that is not set up for you, you can set this up for testing purposes. Here I have created a simple UI with just the background and gamma correction widget. This widget will not have any functionality. We will instantiate this widget through the level blueprint and enable the player to interact with the widget by showing the mouse cursor and setting the input mode to UI. Again, this will be up to you and your current setup how you use it. Here I am testing the slider and the button and seeing its effect in real time. Section 5. Material Calibration. This section is just calibration of the previously created material instances. Set the values to whatever seems appropriate. Change the values and test frequently. And for this section, the final values which I reached to was not visible 0.002, barely visible 0.005, clearly visible 0.05. Section 6. Custom Game User Settings. So this is the part where C++ project part is required. We create a C++ class which extends from GameUserSettings. And if you are following the plugin route, please make sure to put this in the plugin runtime. While the GameUserSetting compiles, I would say that we can do this in Blueprint, but we have to use the save game slot feature, and that doesn't exactly provide us a human readable config INI, and also it is meant to save games and not configs. So approaching it via C++ is a better way to do it. Now that it has compiled, we will create the float variable gamma value along with its getter and setter, and we'll ensure that the float variable has u property of config, and the functions are U function blueprint callable or U function blueprint pure based on whether they are getter or setter. You can see me creating a constructor here, and as even though I've created it, I will remove it further as this was causing a compilation error. We create a static self-returning function with the blueprint callable U function so that we can call this game user setting class in blueprint to access the getter and setter of this new value. The function will return the default game user settings casted to the custom one. Now I'll be fixing some bugs which were causing some compilation issues. Post this, we need to do one more thing before we launch the engine. In the config folder, default engine.ini config file, under the engine.engine section, we have to add a single line stating which class will Unreal use as the default GameUserSettings class. Section 7. Integrating the custom game user settings in UI. Firstly, we'll save the gamma value upon reset and apply the settings. We will also save and apply the gamma value settings whenever the value on the slider is changed. Even though I'm pretty sure this is not the best way to save it, we'll handle it later on. Then, when we have saved it at all the intended places, we have to ensure that we are loading it correctly. Hence, we get the gamma value and set it at the start of the map, so that at map launch the saved value is used. We also adjust the slider at pre-construct based on the saved gamma value so that we get the UI in the correct state. Now we just have to check for edge cases and fix any bugs we find with this setup. There is a bug associated in the reset to default section and we'll be fixing it in section 8. Section 8. This section is me just finding and fixing and testing the bug fix I mentioned previously. You can watch this to see how to debug issues, or you can skip this. Section 9. Restructuring the plugin. This section is again skippable, as this is me just restructuring the plugin so that I can reuse this project for later tutorials in the settings series. Section 10, the final section, showcasing the package project. We package the project and launch it along with the GameUserSettings.ini file. The file can be found at app data, local, project name, saved, config. So when we open it and we change the value of the slider, you can see that the value is reflected in the file. And when the application is closed, any changes in the ini files will be read when the application is launched next. So that was all from me. Thanks for watching it till the end. Stay tuned for upcoming in-depth tutorials on various topics.